My name is Tyler, 32, and my whole world is my son Mason, who's 8 years old and needs urgent heart surgery. For 3 years, I worked 2 jobs, sacrificed everything to save $60,000 for his operation. Then one morning, I opened my safe and found it empty. When I confronted my cousin Vanessa, she just smiled. "He'll be fine. Kids heal fast," she said, booking her Paris vacation with my son's surgery money. I never imagined my own blood would gamble with my son's life for a luxury vacation. But what happened next changed both our lives forever. Before I dive into this nightmare, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. Hit that like button and subscribe if you've ever been betrayed by family. Trust me, what happened after she boarded that plane will make your jaw drop. Life wasn't always this complicated. 6 years ago, my wife Natalie and I were living our version of the American dream in our small 3-bedroom house. We had a 2-year-old son, steady jobs, and weekend barbecues with friends. Then came the rainy Tuesday that shattered everything. Natalie was driving home from the grocery store when a truck driver fell asleep at the wheel. She died on impact, leaving me alone with our toddler son and a void nothing could fill. Those first months passed in a blur of grief, microwave dinners, and sleepless nights. Mason would cry for his mom, and all I could do was hold him, my tears mixing with his. Eventually, we developed a rhythm, just the two of us. I worked as an electrician during the day while Mason attended daycare, then rushed home for our sacred evening routine: dinner, bath time, and reading until he fell asleep. On weekends, we built model airplanes, his tiny fingers struggling with the pieces while I guided him patiently. "Dad, will this one really fly?" he'd ask about each new model. "Not these ones, buddy. But someday, I'll take you on a real airplane. Promise." It wasn't perfect, but we were managing. I dated occasionally when my mother could babysit, but no relationship stuck. Most women understandably weren't eager to step into an instant family situation with a grieving widower. Besides, Mason remained my priority. His smile, with that one crooked front tooth, was worth every sacrifice. Everything changed during Mason's kindergarten physical when he was 5. The doctors frowned while listening to his heart sent ice through my veins. "I'm hearing an abnormal murmur," Dr. Lawrence said, her stethoscope still pressed to his little chest. "Likely nothing serious, but I'd like to run some tests." Those tests led to more tests, culminating in a diagnosis that terrified me: congenital aortic stenosis with ventricular septal defect. In simple terms, Mason's heart had a hole between chambers, and one of his valves wasn't opening properly. The condition had gone undetected at birth and had progressively worsened. "Without surgical intervention, his heart will continue to enlarge and eventually fail," Dr. Lawrence explained in her office, diagrams of healthy and unhealthy hearts spread across her desk. "The good news is that with the right procedure, he can lead a completely normal life." The surgery needed to be performed by a pediatric cardiothoracic specialist. My insurance would cover most costs, but policy limitations and out-of-network specialists meant I'd need to come up with $60,000. It might as well have been $1 million to me. "We can schedule the procedure for 3 years from now," Dr. Lawrence suggested. "That gives you time to arrange financing. Mason's condition is serious but stable enough that waiting is an option, though not ideal." I developed a meticulous saving plan. I kept my day job as an electrician but added weekend security guard shifts at the local mall. Goodbye cable TV, restaurants, new clothes, and any semblance of a social life. My mother Patricia helped with childcare during my weekend shifts, despite her arthritis making it increasingly difficult to keep up with an energetic boy. As we approached the 3-year mark, Mason's symptoms became more noticeable. He'd get winded climbing the stairs to our apartment. Sometimes his lips would take on a bluish tint during physical activity. He'd need to rest after playing for just 20 minutes, while other kids continued for hours. Each symptom was a knife twist, a reminder that his condition was worsening despite his brave face. "Dad, can I stop taking these pills when I get my surgery?" he'd ask every night during our medication routine. "That's the plan, buddy. Dr. Lawrence says you might not need any medication at all after you heal. My family knew about our situation, of course. My Aunt Margaret, my late mother's sister, would invite us for Sunday dinners, refusing to take no for an answer. She lived in a sprawling house in the suburbs, courtesy of her late husband's insurance policy. The Sunday gatherings always included her daughter, my cousin Vanessa. At 34, Vanessa was 2 years older than me but seemed to exist in a different universe. While I worried about making rent and affording Mason's medications, she stressed about which European capital to visit next or which luxury car to lease. She never held a job for more than a year, always finding reasons why each workplace was toxic or stifling her creativity. Aunt Margaret had bailed her out of financial troubles countless times. Vanessa had always been the spoiled one, even when we were kids. If I had a toy she wanted, she'd cry until her mother bought her a better version. In adulthood, her entitlement had only grown. She'd borrow items without returning them, from designer sunglasses to cash from wallets left unattended at family gatherings. Everyone knew about these tendencies but dismissed them as just Vanessa being Vanessa. I kept my distance as much as politeness allowed. Unfortunately, Aunt Margaret's Sunday dinners were non-negotiable. Family sticks together, she'd insist, not recognizing the irony that her daughter was the one person I least trusted. By April 2023, I had finally reached my goal. 3 years of brutal work schedules, selling possessions, and living on ramen noodles had accumulated exactly $60,012 in my fireproof safe at home. I kept the money there after an identity theft incident years earlier had made me distrustful of banks. The surgery was scheduled for May 15th, just 1 month away. Mason's looking good, Dr. Lawrence said during our pre-surgery consultation. His left ventricle is enlarged but still functioning adequately. The timing is perfect. Much longer would increase risk substantially. For the first time in years, I allowed myself to feel hope. Just 30 more days, and Mason would have a normal heart and a normal childhood ahead. Little did I know that everything was about to fall apart. 2 weeks before Mason's scheduled surgery, we attended our regular Sunday dinner at Aunt Margaret's house. The meal was delicious as always, pot roast with garlic mashed potatoes, Mason's favorite. Vanessa arrived an hour late, making a dramatic entrance in designer clothes that probably cost more than my monthly salary. "Sorry I'm late," she announced, air-kissing Aunt Margaret's cheek. Traffic was absolute murder coming from the city. During dinner, the conversation naturally turned to Mason's upcoming surgery. Aunt Margaret had knitted him a special blanket for his hospital stay, decorated with spaceships and stars. "It's getting close now, isn't it?" she asked, passing me a second serving of pot roast. "Are you nervous, Mason?" Mason nodded, poking at his vegetables. "A little. Dad says I'll have a cool scar like a superhero." "You certainly will," I assured him, ruffling his hair. "And you'll be able to play soccer without getting tired." Vanessa, who had been scrolling through her phone, suddenly looked up with unusual interest. "So, financially, you're all set? 60,000 is a lot of money." "We're set," I replied cautiously. "It's taken 3 years, but I've saved every penny." "That's incredible," she said, setting her phone down. "I can't imagine saving that much. Where do you keep it all?" "Not in a checking account, I hope. The fees would eat you alive." I hesitated but saw no harm in answering. "After that identity theft situation a few years back, I don't trust banks with large sums. I keep it in a safe at home." "Smart," Vanessa nodded, returning to her phone. I didn't notice the calculating look in her eyes. As we were preparing to leave, Vanessa approached me in the hallway. "I know you're swamped with surgery prep. I could watch Mason tomorrow evening if you need. Don't you have that big meeting with your electrical team?" Her offer surprised me. Vanessa had never volunteered to babysit before. "That would actually be really helpful," I admitted. The quarterly safety meeting was mandatory, and my mother was visiting her sister in Florida. "It's just from 6 to 9. He'll probably be asleep by 8. "No problem at all," She smiled. What are cousins for? The next evening, Vanessa arrived promptly at 5:45 p.m., another surprise. I showed her Mason's medication schedule, emergency contacts, and the frozen pizza for their dinner. We'll be fine, she assured me. Go to your boring meeting. I kissed Mason goodbye and headed out, completely unaware it would be the last time I'd see our life as it was. The meeting ran late, and I didn't get home until 10:30 p.m. The house was quiet. Vanessa was watching something on her phone, earbuds in. He went down easily, she reported, gathering her things. Such a sweet kid. Thanks again, I said, walking her to the door. This really helped me out. Anytime, she replied with a smile. Family takes care of family. The next morning, I followed our usual routine. After getting Mason ready for school, I opened the safe to add my latest paycheck to our surgery fund. It was part of my ritual, watching the amount grow incrementally. The safe was empty. I blinked, certain I was hallucinating. I reached in, running my fingers along the bare metal interior. $60,000 gone. 3 years of sacrifice vanished. No, 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 I muttered, pulling the safe from its hiding place in my closet, turning it upside down as if the money might be stuck somewhere. Nothing fell out. Dad? I'm going to miss the bus, Mason called from the kitchen. Coming, buddy, I managed to respond, my voice strangled. I closed the closet door and went through the motions of our morning routine, mind racing. Who knew about the safe? Only my mother, Aunt Margaret, and now Vanessa. After dropping Mason at school, I tore the house apart, desperately hoping I'd moved the money and forgotten. Under mattresses, inside air vents, behind the refrigerator. Nothing. I called the police. Officer Rivera arrived within the hour, taking notes as I explained the situation. No signs of forced entry? He confirmed. None. Whoever took it had access to my home and knew exactly where to look. And you suspect your cousin? I hesitated. She's the only person who was here last night, and I told her about the safe recently. It can't be a coincidence. Officer Rivera's expression was sympathetic but not optimistic. With no signs of breaking and entering, and cash being untraceable, recovery is difficult. We'll file the report and investigate, but I need to be honest about the chances. After he left, I called my neighbor Calvin, whose security camera faced my driveway. Let me check the footage, he offered. 20 minutes later, he texted a video clip clearly showing Vanessa's red Audi pulling into my driveway at 1:36 a.m., long after she'd supposedly gone home. The footage showed her leaving again at 1:52 a.m., carrying something under her arm. I called Vanessa repeatedly. No answer. I texted, "Need to talk now. Emergency." Nothing. With shaking hands, I opened Instagram. Vanessa's latest story, posted 3 hours earlier, showed her at Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris. The caption read, "Spontaneous getaway. Life's too short not to seize the moment. #living my best life #Parisbound." She had stolen my son's surgery money and fled the country. I called Dr. Lawrence's office, explaining the situation through tears. "I'm so sorry, Tyler," she said, horror in her voice. "But without payment, we can't proceed with surgery. The specialist is flying in specifically for this procedure. Can we reschedule? Just until I find a way to get the money back? The specialist's schedule is booked for the next 8 months. And frankly, I'm concerned about waiting that long given Mason's recent symptoms." That evening, Mason found me sitting at the kitchen table, staring at nothing. "Dad? Are you sick?" he asked, his small hand touching my arm. I forced a smile. "Just tired, buddy. How was school? Mrs. Johnson says I can be the line leader next week, after my surgery, when I'm all better." I swallowed hard. "That's great, Mason. Dad? Why are you crying?" I pulled him into a hug, unable to tell him that his own cousin had just gambled with his life. After 48 hours of unanswered calls and messages, Vanessa finally responded to my video call request. Her face appeared on screen, sunglasses perched on her head, the Eiffel Tower visible through a window behind her. "Tyler! What's with all the messages? Is everything okay?" she asked, as if she hadn't stolen my son's future. I struggled to control my voice. "Where's the money, Vanessa?" "What money?" Her expression remained innocently puzzled. "The $60,000 that was in my safe. The money for Mason's heart surgery. The money you stole after I trusted you in my home." Her expression shifted subtly. "That's a pretty serious accusation." "Cut the act," I snapped. "You were caught on Calvin's security camera returning to my house at 1:30 a.m. The police have the footage." Vanessa's facade cracked slightly. "Look, I was going to tell you. I'm just borrowing it temporarily for an investment opportunity. You'll get it back with interest." "Borrowing?" "You stole my son's surgery money and fled the country. You're being dramatic. It's just money. You can save it again." My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped the phone. "Mason's surgery is in 2 weeks. His heart is failing. He needs that operation." Vanessa sighed dramatically. "He'll be fine. Kids heal fast. Stop being so dramatic." The casualness with which she dismissed my son's life left me speechless. "Besides," she continued, "you always get all the family sympathy with your sad single dad story. Everyone's always poor Tyler this and brave Tyler that. Do you know how tired I am of hearing about your struggles? Some of us have dreams too, you know." The camera angle shifted as she moved around her hotel room, revealing shopping bags from Chanel and Louis Vuitton scattered across the bed. "I needed this trip," she continued. "I've been so stressed lately. Julian and I might be breaking up, and this getaway is helping me clear my head." "You're using my son's surgery money for a breakup recovery trip?" I was shouting now. "I told you, I'll pay you back eventually. I have prospects. Things in the works. Mason could die, Vanessa. Do you understand that? My 8-year-old son could die because of what you did." She rolled her eyes. "Nobody's going to die. You're being hysterical. I have to go now. I have dinner reservations. Vanessa, don't you dare hang up." The screen went black. I hurled my phone across the room, then punched the wall so hard the drywall cracked. Pain shot through my hand, but it was nothing compared to the rage and fear consuming me. I called Aunt Margaret immediately. "Tyler? What's wrong? You sound terrible." Her concerned voice came through the speaker. "It's Vanessa. She stole the money for Mason's surgery. All of it. She's in Paris right now, spending it on shopping and fine dining." There was a long silence. "That can't be right. Vanessa wouldn't do that. I just video called her." She admitted taking it. "She doesn't care that Mason's surgery is in 2 weeks. She said, and I quote, 'He'll be fine. Kids heal fast.'" Aunt Margaret's breathing became ragged. "Oh my God! Oh my God! I'll call her right now. I've been trying for 2 days." She only answered me to gloat. "This is my fault," Aunt Margaret said, her voice breaking. "I've enabled her for too long. But this is criminal. It's monstrous. I need that money back, Margaret. Mason's heart can't wait. I'll help however I can," she promised. "I'm on a fixed income since Gerald died, but I have some jewelry I can sell. It won't be 60,000, but it might help." The next day, I met with Dr. Lawrence and Patricia, the hospital's financial administrator, hoping for a miracle. "Without full payment, we simply can't schedule the operating room and the specialist," Patricia explained gently. "Hospital policy is very strict about this." "What happens if we delay the surgery?" I asked Dr. Lawrence. Her expression was grave. "Mason's latest echocardiogram shows his heart muscle is already straining. Delaying significantly increases the risk of heart failure. We're no longer in the ideal timing window. We're approaching medical necessity." I approached my boss Kenneth about an advance on my salary, but company policy prevented him from helping. I applied for emergency loans, but my credit score, damaged from medical debts after Natalie's accident, disqualified me from any meaningful amount. 2 days later, Mason collapsed during physical education class. The school nurse called me in a panic. "His lips are blue, and his pulse is irregular," she explained as I raced to my truck. "The ambulance is on its way." I met them at the hospital, where Mason was stabilized with medication. Dr. Lawrence pulled me aside in the hallway. "Tyler, we're running out of time. His heart is struggling more than I anticipated. Whatever financial arrangements you need to make, they need to happen now." I nodded, numb with fear. "I'm trying everything." Mason looked so small in the hospital bed, oxygen tubes in his nose. "Dad? Am I still getting my surgery soon?" I took his hand, forcing a smile. "We're working on it, buddy. Just a little change of plans." His eyes, so trusting, nearly broke me. "Okay. I trust you, Dad." That night, I sat in the hospital parking lot and sobbed until I couldn't breathe. After Mason's collapse, Dr. Lawrence insisted on moving up the timeline. "His heart is deteriorating faster than projected," she explained, showing me the latest test results. "Ideally, we need to perform this surgery within the next 2 weeks, not the month we'd planned." Desperation drove me to extreme measures. I listed my truck for sale at half its value for a quick transaction. The $8,000 I received barely made a dent in what we needed, but it was something. I sold our furniture, my tools, my father's watch, anything that wasn't absolutely essential. My friend Marcus stopped by after hearing about our situation. "I've got $3,000 saved for a down payment on a house," he said, pressing an envelope into my hand. "Take it." No arguments. "Marcus, I can't." "Yes, you can. Mason is my godson. This isn't charity, it's family." I started a GoFundMe campaign, but as a private person with a limited social network, it gained little traction initially. After a week, we'd raised only $2,400 from local friends and acquaintances. At home, I was trying to maintain normalcy for Mason's sake, but the strain was showing. One night, he found me at the kitchen table, bills spread out, calculator in hand, quietly crying. "Dad?" he said, startling me. "Is this about my heart?" I quickly wiped my eyes. "Just grown-up stuff, buddy. Nothing for you to worry about." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a crumpled $20 bill. "This is from my birthday. You can have it for my surgery." I pulled him into a hug, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. My physical health began deteriorating along with my mental state. I lost 15 pounds in 2 weeks. Sleep became a luxury I couldn't afford as I took dangerous side jobs wiring houses without proper permits or safety equipment. After working 36 hours straight, I suffered a minor electrical shock that left a burn on my forearm. Aunt Margaret called one evening. "I sold my wedding ring and Gerald's gold watch," she said without preamble. "It's $12,000. I'll bring it over tomorrow." "Margaret, I can't take your wedding ring." "Yes, you can. I'd give anything to undo what Vanessa has done. This is just the start." I applied for every loan imaginable, but rejections piled up due to my existing medical debt from Natalie's accident. The bank even suggested I consider declaring bankruptcy, useless advice when I needed cash immediately. Mason's condition worsened visibly each day. The medication that had previously controlled his symptoms was becoming less effective. He tired walking from his bedroom to the bathroom. At night, I would check on him obsessively, terrified his heart might stop while he slept. Dr. Lawrence recommended hospitalization for monitoring, but our insurance would only cover 3 days without the scheduled surgery. Another financial impossibility. The financial strain meant I'd fallen behind on car payments, prioritizing Mason's medications instead. The repossession notice came on a Tuesday. By Wednesday, my car was gone. I began biking to work in the rain, developing a hacking cough that turned into pneumonia within days. One night, Mason asked the question I'd been dreading. "Dad, am I going to die like Mom did?" I sat on his bed, taking his small hands in mine. No, buddy. Absolutely not. I promise I'll find a way to get your surgery. Whatever it takes. He nodded solemnly. If I do die, will I get to see Mom in heaven? I broke down then, unable to maintain the strong facade any longer. Meanwhile, Vanessa's Instagram continued documenting her Parisian adventure. Wine tastings in Montmartre, shopping on the Champs-Élysées, selfies at the Louvre. Each post was like a knife in my heart. A hospital social worker, concerned about my deteriorating condition and inability to care for Mason properly, gently suggested temporary foster care. Just until you get back on your feet, she explained kindly. Mason needs consistent care right now. The suggestion sent me to my darkest place yet. That night, I found myself researching how much I could get pawning my neighbor's television or whether I could sell my plasma multiple times under different names. I even considered more drastic illegal measures, thoughts that terrified me once I recognized them. Just as I was contemplating these desperate options, my phone rang with an unknown number. Is this Tyler Mitchell? A man's voice asked. Yes, who's this? My name is Julian Barnes. I'm Vanessa's boyfriend, or ex-boyfriend now. We need to talk about the money she stole. The day after Julian's call, Mason's school phoned during my lunch break at work. His teacher had found him unconscious in the bathroom. By the time I arrived at the emergency room, they had stabilized him, but Dr. Lawrence's expression told me everything. His heart is failing, Tyler, she said bluntly in the hallway outside Mason's room. We need to perform the surgery within 72 hours, or we risk catastrophic damage that even surgery might not repair. I have about $26,000, I said, my voice breaking. Less than half what we need. Dr. Lawrence placed her hand on my shoulder. I'll speak with the hospital administrator again, but I need to be honest. Without full payment, the specialist won't fly in. I found myself wandering to the hospital chapel, a place I hadn't entered since Natalie died. I collapsed into a pew and completely broke down. Please, I begged to whoever might be listening. He's just a little boy. He's all I have. I didn't notice the woman sitting quietly in the back row until she approached me tentatively. Excuse me, she said softly. I don't mean to intrude, but are you Mason Mitchell's father? I looked up to see a woman in her 30s holding a small notebook. Yes, why? I'm Gabriela Ramirez from Channel 7 News. I'm here covering the new pediatric wing dedication, but I couldn't help overhearing your conversation with the doctor in the cafeteria earlier. She sat beside me. Would you be willing to share your story? It might help. My initial reaction was to refuse. Our troubles were private, not fodder for the evening news. But Mason's time was running out. Will it help get my son his surgery? I asked. I can't promise anything, she answered honestly. But sometimes when these stories go public, communities respond. That evening, our story was the lead segment on Channel 7's evening news. Local father savings for son's heart surgery stolen by family member. The piece included photos of Mason, details of his condition, and security camera footage showing Vanessa entering my home in the middle of the night. By morning, the story had been picked up by national news outlets. The hashtag #SaveMason was trending on Twitter. Our GoFundMe, which had languished at $2,400, jumped to $15,000 before noon. Julian, true to his word, had provided screenshots of Vanessa's text messages mentioning the money and her plans to borrow it for her Paris trip. These were published alongside the news story, removing any doubt about her involvement. Halfway across the world, Vanessa was forced to confront the consequences of her actions. Julian sent me a video of their confrontation in their Paris hotel room, his phone displaying the viral news story as he confronted her. It was just alone. She insisted on the video. Everyone's overreacting. A loan without permission is theft, Vanessa. Julian responded. And when it's money for a child's heart surgery, it's monstrous. Her expression shifted from dismissive to panicked as Julian explained that death threats were appearing on her social media accounts. People were calling her employer demanding her termination. Julian ended their relationship publicly, posting a statement distancing himself from her actions and announcing his immediate return to the United States. Vanessa's employer, a marketing firm, placed her on unpaid leave pending investigation into the alleged criminal activity. The community response was overwhelming. Local businesses organized emergency fundraisers. Mason's school held a penny drive and car wash that raised nearly $3,000 in a single day. Members of my electricians' union donated vacation days and sick leave that could be converted to cash. Vanessa, meanwhile, found herself a pariah overnight. Her social media accounts were flooded with hostile messages from strangers worldwide. She tried deleting her accounts, but screenshots of her Paris posts juxtaposed with Mason's hospital photos continued circulating. Aunt Margaret issued a public statement condemning her daughter's actions. "I love my daughter, but I cannot condone what she has done. My focus now is helping my great-nephew get the life-saving surgery he needs." Vanessa began desperately trying to contact me, leaving voicemails alternating between defensive justifications and tearful apologies. I ignored them all, focused solely on Mason, whose condition had deteriorated to the point where he was moved to the ICU for constant monitoring. "His heart is functioning at less than 40% capacity," Dr. Lawrence explained. "We're keeping him stable with medication, but it's a temporary solution." Mason, despite his condition, remained concerned about others. "Is Cousin Vanessa in trouble?" he asked weakly from his hospital bed. "You always said family should forgive family." I smoothed his hair back from his forehead. "Sometimes it's complicated, buddy. Let's focus on getting you better first." As Mason's condition became critical, I began to lose hope that we would raise the money in time. That's when the miracle happened. On the morning of what would be our 4th day in the ICU, the hospital's financial administrator Patricia knocked on Mason's door, her expression uncharacteristically excited. "Tyler, the community fundraiser has reached $40,000, she announced. "And an anonymous donor just contributed the final $20,000 needed for the surgery." I stared at her in disbelief. "We have the full amount? Mason can have his surgery? Dr. Lawrence is contacting the specialists right now. If he can rearrange his schedule, we could be looking at surgery as early as tomorrow morning." I collapsed into the chair beside Mason's bed, overcome with emotion. Mason, groggy from medication, reached for my hand. "Does this mean I'm getting fixed, Dad?" he asked. "Yes, buddy. Your surgery is happening. Very soon." Later that afternoon, Dr. Lawrence confirmed the specialist had agreed to fly in immediately. "We're scheduling the surgery for 7 a.m. tomorrow. The team is already preparing." That night, I slept in the recliner beside Mason's hospital bed, listening to the rhythmic beeping of his heart monitor. Each irregular beat reminded me how close we'd come to losing everything. Early the next morning, I received a text from Aunt Margaret. "Vanessa booked an emergency flight home. She'll land at 3 p.m. today." I had no response. Vanessa's return meant nothing compared to Mason's surgery. The pre-surgery preparations began at 5 a.m. Nurses came to administer preoperative medications and attach additional monitoring equipment. The anesthesiologist, Dr. Chin, explained exactly what would happen during the 6-hour procedure. "We'll repair the septal defect first, then replace the damaged valve," he explained using simple terms Mason could understand. "When you wake up, you'll be in a special recovery room with lots of machines helping you heal." Mason nodded bravely. "Will it hurt?" "You'll be completely asleep during the surgery," Dr. Chin assured him. "Afterward, you'll have some pain, but we have very good medicine to help with that." Dr. Lawrence arrived in surgical scrubs, her confident presence reassuring us both. "We've done hundreds of these procedures, Mason. Your heart is going to work so much better when we're done." As they prepared to wheel him to the operating room, Mason gripped my hand tightly. "Dad, promise me something?" "Anything, buddy. Don't hate Cousin Vanessa forever. Mom always said hate makes your heart sick." Tears filled my eyes. Even facing major surgery, my son's heart was bigger figuratively than mine would ever be. I'll try, Mason. I promise I'll try. I walked alongside his gurney until we reached the doors where I couldn't go further. I love you more than anything in the world, I told him, trying to keep my voice steady. Love you too, Dad. See you when I wake up. Then he was gone, disappearing through the swinging doors into the operating room. The waiting room became my prison for the next 8 hours. Aunt Margaret arrived around 9 a.m., her eyes red from crying. Any news? She asked, sitting beside me. They said they'd update us at the halfway point. Nothing yet. We sat in silence for several minutes before she spoke again. I'm so sorry, Tyler. If I had raised her differently. This isn't on you, Margaret. Vanessa made her own choices. Around noon, 2 police detectives arrived to take my formal statement about the theft. The publicity had accelerated their investigation, and they wanted details while waiting for Vanessa's return to the country. We'll need you to sign this statement, Detective Rodriguez explained. But we can wait until after your son's surgery. At 1:30 p.m., Dr. Lawrence appeared in the doorway, still in surgical scrubs. My heart stopped until I saw her small smile. We had a complication, she explained, sitting across from me. Mason's heart stopped briefly on the table. We were able to restart it quickly, and we've completed both repairs successfully. His heart stopped? I repeated, the words not fully registering. It's not uncommon during this type of surgery, she assured me. The important thing is that we've repaired the defect and replaced the valve. His heart is already showing improved function. When can I see him? I asked. He's in recovery now. Once he's stabilized, they'll move him to the PICU. I'd estimate you can see him in about an hour. True to her word, a nurse came to get me 90 minutes later. Mason lay in the pediatric intensive care unit, connected to numerous tubes and monitors. His skin was pale, and a large bandage covered his chest, but the rhythmic beeping of his heart monitor sounded stronger already. I was holding Mason's hand when commotion erupted in the hospital corridor. Raised voices and the sound of security being called drew my attention. You don't understand. I need to see them. That's my cousin and my nephew. Vanessa's voice was unmistakable. I stepped into the hallway to see her being restrained by hospital security. She looked terrible, hair disheveled, makeup smeared, designer clothes wrinkled from travel. Tyler, she cried when she saw me. Please, tell them to let me see Mason. I need to explain. Take her out of the building. I told security flatly. She's not welcome here. Tyler, please. I brought what's left of the money. Please. She screamed as they escorted her toward the elevator. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I returned to Mason's bedside, shutting the door on her pleas. As I sat watching Mason's chest rise and fall, my phone buzzed with a news alert. Woman who stole nephew's heart surgery money arrested at City Hospital. The accompanying photo showed Vanessa being placed in a police cruiser, her face contorted in tears. Later that evening, Detective Rodriguez informed me that Vanessa had been charged with grand theft and child endangerment. She was released on bail to Aunt Margaret's custody pending trial. Mason woke briefly that night, groggy and confused from the anesthesia and pain medication. Dad? He whispered through cracked lips. Did they fix my heart? I leaned close, kissing his forehead. They did, buddy. Your heart is working better already. Is Vanessa okay? He asked, his eyes already closing again. Even now, he thought of others first. She will be, I answered softly. Don't worry about that now. Just rest. As Mason drifted back to sleep, I checked my phone to find a message from Julian. The anonymous donation was from me. I sold my car and emptied my savings. It doesn't make up for what Vanessa did, but I couldn't live with myself otherwise. For the first time in weeks, I felt something like peace as I watched my son sleep, his repaired heart beating steadily on the monitor beside his bed. Mason's recovery was neither quick nor easy. The first 2 weeks in the hospital brought challenges: drainage tubes, pain management issues, and a brief infection scare that required additional antibiotics. Through it all, he demonstrated a resilience that humbled me. I slept in the uncomfortable recliner beside his hospital bed every night, refusing offers from nurses to use the parents' sleep room down the hall. My back protested, but being away from him was unthinkable after coming so close to losing him. The community support continued long after the surgery. A rotating schedule of neighbors and coworkers maintained our apartment, ensuring it was clean and stocked with groceries for our return. My boss Kenneth arranged a modified work schedule, allowing me to spend afternoons at the hospital. Mason's teacher organized a video call with his classmates, who had created a giant get well card covering an entire classroom wall. Vanessa's case moved through the legal system. Her initial court appearance resulted in formal charges of grand theft and child endangerment. Her lawyer negotiated a plea arrangement that would avoid jail time but include significant restitution and community service. 2 weeks after surgery, Vanessa published an open letter of apology online. To my cousin Tyler, my nephew Mason, and everyone who has followed this story, words cannot express my remorse for what I did. There is no excuse for taking money meant for a child's life-saving surgery. I acted with inexcusable selfishness and cruelty. While I cannot undo the pain and suffering I caused, I am committed to making amends however possible. I ask not for forgiveness, which I do not deserve, but for the opportunity to demonstrate through actions that people can change. Public reaction was predictably skeptical. Most comments dismissed it as damage control written by the lawyer. I wasn't sure what to believe myself. After 18 days in the hospital, Mason was cleared to come home with an oxygen tank and a complex medication regimen. His first steps into our apartment were wobbly but determined. It feels different, he observed, looking around. Like everything's brighter. That's because your heart is pumping better, I explained. You're getting more oxygen to your brain. He nodded seriously. And because we're both home together again. 3 days after our homecoming, there was an unexpected knock at the door. I opened it to find Vanessa standing there, looking nothing like her usual polished self in jeans and a plain sweater. Please don't close the door, she said quickly. I brought this. She held out an envelope. What is it? I asked, not inviting her in. It's $10,000. All I have left. I know it's not enough, but it's a start. I sold my designer bags, my jewelry, everything of value. I took the envelope without thanks. Is that all? No, she admitted. I'd like to see Mason, if he's willing. I wanted to refuse, to protect my son from the woman who had nearly cost him his life. But I remembered his request in the hospital. It's up to him, I said finally. I'll ask. To my surprise, Mason wanted to see her. I led Vanessa to his bedroom, where he was propped up with pillows, a model airplane kit spread across his lap. Hi, Cousin Vanessa, he said cautiously. Hi, Mason. Her voice cracked. You look better. An awkward silence fell until Mason asked the question that had clearly been on his mind. Did you not love me enough to want me to live? Vanessa's composure crumbled. She sank to her knees beside his bed, sobbing. I never thought about it that way. I never thought about you at all. I only thought about myself. That's the worst part. I didn't even consider what would happen to you. Her raw honesty seemed to satisfy something in Mason. Dad says your brain doesn't finish growing until you're 25. Maybe yours is taking longer. A startled laugh escaped through Vanessa's tears. Maybe you're right. Vanessa was sentenced to 2,000 hours of community service at the same children's hospital where Mason had his surgery, specifically in the cardiac ward. The judge also ordered regular therapy sessions and full restitution, with payments to be made to a fund for other children needing similar surgeries. 6 months after the surgery, Mason's follow-up appointment showed remarkable progress. The synthetic valve was functioning perfectly, and his heart had already begun returning to a more normal size. He's exceeding all our expectations, Dr. Lawrence said, reviewing his echocardiogram. I'd clear him for moderate physical activity now, with few restrictions by the 1-year mark. My story had attracted attention beyond our community. A construction company specializing in healthcare facilities offered me a position as their electrical systems manager, with significantly better pay and health benefits than my previous job. The work was less physically demanding, allowing me more time and energy for Mason. Vanessa, meanwhile, was undergoing a transformation that surprised everyone. Her therapist had helped her recognize patterns of narcissistic behavior stemming from childhood insecurities. The community service hours, initially approached as a burden, became meaningful as she connected with children facing similar situations to Mason's. Thanksgiving dinner at Aunt Margaret's house that year was a tense affair. Vanessa was present at her mother's insistence, quietly helping in the kitchen rather than commanding attention as she once would have. During dinner, Mason asked if Vanessa could pass the mashed potatoes. The simple interaction, ordinary in any other family, felt monumental in ours. "I forgive you, Vanessa," Mason said suddenly, looking directly at his cousin. "Dad says forgiveness is for us, not the other person. It makes our hearts lighter." I hadn't actually said that, but I wished I had. Mason's capacity for forgiveness far exceeded my own. I was still working through anger and betrayal, attending a support group for parents of critically ill children that helped me process these emotions. On the 1-year anniversary of Mason's surgery, something remarkable happened. Mason played in his first soccer game, running up and down the field with energy that would have been impossible before his operation. Watching from the sidelines, I couldn't hold back tears. Later that week, our community held a celebration at the local park. The event honored both Mason's recovery and the collective effort that had made it possible. Hundreds attended, including Dr. Lawrence, Officer Rivera, and many others who had been part of our journey. Vanessa attended too, though she stayed on the periphery until Mason spotted her and waved her over. She had completed almost all her community service hours and had recently been hired as an administrative assistant in the hospital's fundraising department, a legitimate job using her social skills for positive purposes. "I'm organizing a fundraiser for kids who need heart surgeries like Mason's," she told me awkwardly. "I thought, maybe Mason might want to speak at the event. Only if he wants to, of course." It was the first time she'd approached me with genuine humility rather than manipulation or entitlement. Progress, however small. 2 years after the surgery that nearly didn't happen, Mason and I visited the Children's Hospital cardiac ward where he'd spent those critical weeks. Vanessa was there, helping a young patient build a model airplane similar to those Mason loved. "Dad," Mason said quietly as we watched her, "I think Cousin Vanessa's heart got fixed too, just in a different way." Perhaps he was right. The journey of healing takes many forms, and sometimes the most broken hearts aren't the ones that show up on medical scans. If there's one thing I've learned through this nightmare, it's that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or excusing. It means releasing the power that person's actions have over your life. Mason understood this instinctively. I'm still learning, one day at a time. Have you ever experienced betrayal from someone close to you? How did you handle forgiveness? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If Mason's story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more real-life stories of resilience and healing. Share this video with someone who might need to hear that even after the deepest betrayals, healing is possible. Thank you for listening to our story.